Welcome to episode 12 of the Amazon Connect podcast. As I say thanks on Thanksgiving, which we don't celebrate here in Australia, but we do know about it because it's on all the TV shows and all that kind of thing. But for Mark, it is Thanksgiving,
It is
public holiday
Thanksgiving.
for you. So thank
Yes.
you, Mark. Thank you for joining.
Oh, of course. No, this is. I'm slowly coming out of my turkey coma on all the tryptophan that I've consumed today, and and the pie and other wonderful delights that we have at this time of year. So yeah,
Did,
no,
did,
it's
did
been
you did you
this.
have pumpkin pie? Is that
No, I'm not a
uh,
fan of pumpkin pie. It's more like I'm more into the apple pie
oh
with
yeah.
some ice cream. Like that's my jam.
I was surprised to find Americans are not known for putting meat inside pies, which is a
No, that's
thing
not a
we
thing here, right?
That's what we do. When
Yes.
someone says a pie, we think of a meat
like
pie.
like
Yeah.
mince meat or
Mince meat, yeah, and
yes, yeah,
gravy and
yeah,
butter
yeah.
pie, yeah.
No, we're all for the sugar and the fruit and
Mm.
things like that in our pies. So we
Yeah,
prefer that.
a rude surprise in both directions. Anyway, let's get on with Amazon Connect.
Totally.
Um, uh, let's begin with what's new. Now, it's been about 2 weeks since we've done an episode, and it's
It
been,
has. Yeah,
it
it feels like longer than that, but I mean that's just me because of the time distortion and everything else lately. That
well, I
I've been
think
traveling a lot lately, leading
and,
up to reInvent, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
well, I think reinvents. That was what I was going to say. It's not only your travel distortion or time distortion caused by travel. It's also at this time of year it's hard to get anything done around
Hmm.
AWS because
Yes.
there's everything's building towards our great big annual customer focus conference.
Yes, and that's as the product manager, that is one of the things right now where this time of year is super crazy. Just in terms of leading up to reInvent. I've said this before on the podcast that it's reInvent is Christmas for AWS and Connect in
Mm-hmm.
general. And from a product perspective, the majority of the product managers are usually having some type of launch or related to a launch. Participating in a launch that not maybe partnering with another PM as part of
Yeah,
that.
and
So
it's where some of the big ones come through as well, like when we
mhm,
launched Voice ID a few years ago, and
yeah.
customer profiles
Mhm.
and
Our
cases, all these kind of things.
our agent workspace, right? We
Agent
had launched
workspace.
that, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
so it's definitely one of those, sort of monumental points in the year. And it's, we usually have sort of, what I call 3 or 4 marketing moments, throughout the year. We have Enterprise Connect, we have Contact Center Week. I just came out of Dreamforce, right?
hmm
In
hmm
terms of, one of our bigger partners in that side of things. And now we've got reInvent, which is by far the largest, marketing moment for us, right? From that
yeah,
launch of
absolutely.
this.
And I mean, whilst we obviously can't give away some of the announcements ahead of time, directionally, the names of some of the sessions give it away. Like Pasquale has got his big session. It is called
Yes.
Agentic AI Advancements in Customer Experience with
Yes, it
Amazon
was.
Connect.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
think
Yes.
let's not bury the lead there.
Yes. And that's right. You can sense that there that, agentic capabilities, within Connect is going to become, a key aspect of this. And we've talked about this before where, Connect is really going to become your agentic layer and
hmm
orchestrating across your self-service and your agent experiences. And, it's super important that we enable that right for our customers. And what we're really trying to do is make that easier and applicable, right, in terms of how fast the space is moving, and that is
Yeah.
super important, right, as a customer, for our customers, because I can tell you, leading up to this, right, like I said, I've been
Mhm.
traveling all over the place. I've been talking to a lot of customers.
Yeah.
That is the number one discussion, right, that we have with the majority of our customers is they're seeing the speed at which these LLMs are developing, these language models are developing, these capabilities around speech to speech, others like that. So it's just one of those things where the customers comes in like, how do I apply this in my contact center? How do I
Mm.
leverage this across the board and make this easier to use? And it's a highly competitive space as well,
It
right?
is
And
a
so
highly competitive space.
part of that is, we have the advantage obviously being part of AWS and leveraging a lot of the underlying primitives like Bedrock and Anthropic and other capabilities, that we work closely with, partners on. And that's something that, for us, from a Connect perspective, how do we take those capabilities and really optimize those for the contact center experience? And
And
we
and
can.
also we, but particularly you and the rest of the service team, have done a fantastic job of putting the kind of framework in place that is
Mhm.
Connect, so
Yes.
that we were able to snap in very quickly features and functions associated with AI that we've spoken about at length on the podcast.
Mhm.
Um, but have, and this is where I'm finding a lot of purchase with customers and a lot of comfort and a lot of interest, because we have the observability, the
Mhm.
reporting, the
Yes.
end to end control.
Mhm.
Like, anyone can come in and make a good chatbot,
Sure.
by playing
Mhm.
around with an LLM.
Yep.
But where's your explainability? Where's your observability?
Mhm.
Because when you've got generative AI, sooner or later, it's going to hallucinate to a certain degree. And you want to be able to say, what happened? What did it say? Why did it say it? How can I stop that happening again?
Yeah, and I think there's an element too, right, Doug, where this gets exponentially more complex, right, as we start to build,
Oh, yes.
experiences with, on the LLM side, and and we'll just say agents, right? What is it building with agents, AI agents? That is essentially, that in terms of, to your point, observability becomes super important. Testing, right,
Oh,
becomes
yes.
becomes much more complex, right? Traditional software based testing that you used in the past isn't gonna work, right? Because
Mm.
it's just like you just the scale is grown, massively, and you have to think about things like, what kind of persona am I testing?
Yes.
How am I testing against my, the guardrails, right? That I've been, that I want to enable, as part of my AI
And
agents, et
what
cetera. So,
tolerance do I have for the temperature? And, like, is it,
right. Hmm.
how different do I want answers to come back to the same question?
Right.
That might be
Exactly.
slightly different, might be very different.
Hmm. Hmm.
How
Hmm.
creative, for want of a better term, do you want the answers to be?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
in the
yeah,
other
go on.
interesting part, right, is I was having this conversation the other day with a few of our internal consultants. So we have a we call it Gen AIAC, which is essentially our think of them as our uh, AI consultants that focus on really accelerating customers in terms of their adoption of AI. And we were having this conversation, and what I hadn't thought of is, as these LLMs start to develop this more natural sounding interruptibility,
Mhm.
think about like the nuances of performance around that, right? So think
Mm.
about like that pausing, right? Like how long does that, like, because if the LM pauses and then it takes 4 seconds, right? Because it's
Mm.
doing some lookup through a tool on the back end, like you've got to like and because there's a lot more of those, where before you had, and you were able to have these very sort of guided workflows, right? That can,
Mhm.
with Lex, and and in very specific intents and how it responded. Now with this, more natural sounding LLM, it's a bit more complex, from that
Indeed.
perspective. So
I do
that's some
notice,
of the things like people don't quite think about. And it's like it's very nuanced, but it's super important for around that customer experience.
well, the first, entry into that is when you first call into one of our generative AI bots. If you're using the what was built on what was formerly called the old Q and Connect,
Hmm.
um, where if you do it by text, it produces the answer. If you
Yeah.
call into the same bot, it will play a comfort message to you. Effectively, if
Hmm.
you say, I want to know how to renew my license, it will
Right.
say, let me get some information on how to renew your license, which is a way of handling that, the as I say, a comfort message to, so that it's thinking about it, which is really just it buying time whilst it goes off
Exactly.
and does the reasoning to generate
Hmm.
that answer. And also, I always want to come back to and remind people that the use of LLMs and the use of AI is at all levels within the platform, and sometimes it's a very subtle use of it, which brings me to what should be our first section, which is the what's new, because there was a what's
Yes.
new released just yesterday or the day before, or launch,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is the ability to apply large language models to intent disambiguation within
Hmm.
chatbots.
Right.
So with those Lex chatbots you talk about there, that have a more structured flow, which is
Well,
still very
yeah.
common among my
Very
customers,
valid.
because
Yeah, not
if you
everything
could,
needs not everything needs an LLM, right? Or an AI
well,
agent.
it's, I mean, if your customers can only do three things with you, they can only check their balance, make a payment, do something,
Right.
then don't
It's
give them.
I mean, it's super interesting, Doug, right? Like, because I think we've done enough of these is often with many of our customers, we're actually pushing them to be more transformational, right, as part of their
Yes.
CX experience. Because
Yes.
it's often, when they come, they're very used to this traditional IVR simple, approach, press one, press two, or, very simple intent driven. It's like we could make this so much better, more personalized, easier to interact with, more focused on very specific use cases and really offloading, some of those low, I'd say low friction use cases, right, that the
Mm.
agent would normally have to deal with. So we spend, I think, a lot of time educating our customers to ensure, like, are you doing this in a transformational way, not just,
Yeah.
literally lifting and shifting your contact center to connect.
Well, and I think it, it actually goes in both directions. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm walking them back from the cliff as well, where
Right.
they're saying we want to go completely generative. It's like, well, no, no, no. It's
Right.
as the great man
Yes.
Jeff says, you got to work backwards from what they actually want. Like, well, what's the
Exactly.
outcome you're after?
Hmm.
Generative
Hmm.
AI is not necessarily; it may be part of it.
Yeah.
I was working with a customer just yesterday, a Victorian public sector customer, where we have created a bot for them that is a Q and A bot up front, but
Hmm.
then the tooling. So it's a generative AI. Hey, I just want to ask questions. But then the tooling at a certain point, if you do want to go into a guided flow, so for instance, it's hey, I want to renew.
Hmm.
That then drops into a structured bot that says, okay, if you want to renew, you're going to need to know. I need to know this piece of information, this piece of information, this piece of
Right.
information.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's mixing and matching. But I never
Yes.
got to what the actual what's new announcement was,
Yes.
and that is the intent disambiguation, where basically if you have multiple possible intents in your bot
Hmm.
and the bot is unclear which one to classify it as, it used to be that it would just go with the one it thought most likely,
Hmm.
or go to a fallback intent if it
Right.
is unable
Yeah.
to work that out. Now it
Hmm.
will actually ask clarifying questions. So the
Yes.
generative AI will go, you said renew. Did you mean you wanted to renew your license, or do you want to
Hmm.
renew your registration for your car? That
Right.
kind of so it can
Yes.
work out
Yes.
without you having to build
Well,
that
like, do all
disambiguation.
that build all those intents, right, that you
Yeah,
used to have to do, right? And so
yeah,
which was always the hard part, right, and some of
yeah,
that stuff, because you would, again, for some use cases, it's perfectly fine because it matches it well, but then as we get into these, more complex workflows, right, that
yeah.
becomes, that accelerates, the speed at which you can build, these interactions.
Okay, let's go to your favorite of the what's news from the
Yes.
last couple of weeks, because there's been some biggies, but you can have first crack.
Yes. All right. So, why don't we'll start with the small ones, and then we'll kind of, I think we'll save
Work
one
up.
of the work up to the bigger ones as well, around that. So, um, let's see. So, Amazon Connect now offers persistent agent connections for faster call handling. So this is essentially, is helping to really reduce that time to establish, a connection with a customer. And so they can really, they can configure that agent's user profile to maintain that persistent contestant after a conversation ends, really allowing those calls to connect faster.
For want of a
So
better term, it's a nailed up speech path to the agent.
yes,
So between
exactly,
Connect and the
exactly.
agent, that's just there.
It's
That
there.
pipe or tunnel is just sitting there, and we can just
Exactly,
slot in those
exactly.
outbound calls as they connect to the
Yes.
customer.
Yeah. And that's something where, particularly around, when it gets to compliance and regulations, that's something that's super important, in terms of, what we've been really focusing a lot with Connect and our outbound capabilities is really ensuring that we're reducing that time so we can meet a lot of those regulatory requirements. And this is a feature that's really driving towards that overall.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm going to go for Amazon Connect launches monitoring of contacts queued for callback. And as always, I like to earn trust with our listeners by admitting that this is something that people have been asking for a long time.
Hmm.
Callbacks, whilst they worked beautifully, were a little bit of a black hole from a
Yeah.
monitoring perspective, being able to see who's in the callback queue, how big it
Yeah.
is,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
priorities and all those kinds of things. So that's now all visible, all available, which is, I think is yeah, it's something that a lot of people have wanted, and I'm very
Yeah.
pleased it's now there.
Yep. Yep. Next one here, Amazon Connect outbound campaign supports ring time configuration for unanswered calls. So this essentially now allows campaign managers to configure how long those voice calls should ring. So now between a range of 15 and 60 seconds before marking a call as no answer.
Mhm.
So again, this is really trying to improve that overall efficiency as well as customer reach. So it's kind of trying to balance those two, right? Because we talk about this a lot, with Connect is there is that aspect of how long do you enable an agent to wait right before you basically
Mhm.
put that into that missed state, and that's something from what we've traditionally had with Connect, it's about 20 seconds, right,
Yep.
from that perspective, and that's been for the your default inbound call, that's traditionally or callback, right? That's traditionally what we've had, and we
Yes.
continue to have that because that we find that to be a fairly good sweet spot that we have around this. But this particular figure is more focused on the outbound engagement side and outbound campaigns and leveraging it there to give you more of that flexibility because that's what we've seen a real need from a number of
Well,
customers asking for that.
in an outbound scenario, time is of the essence. You
Yes.
are the reason you're using outbound campaign is because you want to maximize the number of minutes in the hour that your agents are
Yep.
talking to customers, to live
Totally.
humans.
Hmm.
And so anything that increases that is the purpose of the outbound campaigns, really.
Yep.
Nice one.
Yep. Yep.
Um, quick one for me next, but I think it speaks to a larger trend or tenet of Amazon Connect. Amazon Connect now supports configuration of email address aliases. So
Mm.
that is where you have an outbound email or it gets forwarded to another area. You might have a hidden address underneath, but you can continue to present to the customer as it goes back and forth with that preferred email address alias. So there's a
Hmm.
consistent view for the customer. The
Right.
larger tenet I think this points to is whenever we release a feature such as email handling, we just make it better and better and better and better. At a certain point, sometimes when we release features, when they come out, we kind of go, I mean, and we talked about this with the agent workspace, you go, well, that doesn't do very much. It's just kind of like a larger
Right.
CCP. And
Hmm.
then very quickly over the coming year, usually in every few months, there's just better and better features come out.
Yep.
So with email,
Hmm.
it's been things like this is a little change, but it's a big impact for customers. The email address aliases, but then there's we've got the summaries, we've got the recommended answers, all
Hmm.
AI automatically
Yes.
out of the box there.
And
So
and
yeah,
that's and that's and that's always the advantage, right, with the agent workspaces we've talked about before is that is where these features will show up first,
yep.
right, in terms of capability. So if you're using the agent workspace, we release them, right? You're getting a lot of that goodness, pretty quickly, which is which
And
is a huge advantage.
I was pleasantly surprised because I was doing a demo for a customer. I hadn't actually looked at the feature, and so the day before, I thought, right, well, I better build this. I didn't have to build it. I just ticked it and turned it on. It started
Right.
working.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
you know,
That's how easy we want to make it, right?
yep, spot on.
So next one here, Amazon Connect Cases adds additional conditional field visibility and dependent options. So this is really around just giving you more flexibility around building those case layouts and ensuring that what you present to the agent is optimized for those views.
Yep.
So for example, there might be a case that involves a particular return. You can then really limit the screen in terms of those fields that are related to that return in terms of what you're showing. So again, small feature, but something that has a nice impact in terms of really improving that overall agent experience.
Well, and a large part of the reasons why Cases is so popular, and literally every customer I talk to at the moment, I'm talking to about
Mhm.
Cases. I don't know
Right.
what's happened all of a sudden that it's just become whether I've got better at explaining or talking about it thanks to
I
Clyde,
think
who
it's
was
I
on the
think it's
last
that, Doug.
episode.
I think you've just gotten
Yeah, I
better at
think it is.
explaining.
But but a large motivator for customers or something that really appeals to them is when I ask, is your current agent desktop a bit confused? Is there too much information on there that the
Right.
agents don't actually
Mhm.
need?
Yes.
And oftentimes they will say, absolutely, that's exactly
Mhm.
the problem.
Yes. Yeah. And that's something, we spend a ton of time on with our UX designers around sort of balancing that element of increasing complexity that we have, within the agent experience, but also with trying to keep it simple, right, as
Yep.
part of that. And that's the name of the game in this space, right, when it comes to improving the agent experience overall. And now, particularly as we start to see more agentic capabilities come in,
Hmm.
we're actually spending a lot of time on that, and you'll see that more pretty soon in terms of I'll say just some really exciting developments that we'll have to announce in the near future.
Yes. Well, I think the next episode, the post reinvent. This is the pre-invent
Yes.
episode. It's going to be
We might.
jam
I think we're going
packed.
to need an extra long. I think we're going to. Well, we might have to have multi-episodic.
Multi episodes. Maybe we'll drop a couple that week because I don't know. I don't know if
Yes.
our audience. I've got no sense from our audience what their tolerance is for length of episode. I suspect it might not
Well,
stretch.
and so but, I'll be at reInvent, and so
Mm.
we are going to try to do a few podcasts
Yes.
while at reInvent. So
I will say though, I think if Dreamforce was anything to go by, you were pretty busy, and we'll get into how reinvent's going to be for you in a second. The
Yes,
back up of the
yes,
show,
totally.
and I was at the New Zealand Public Sector Day the other day with plans to
Yes.
do some
Do
live.
the same.
It was like I was on a stand. I just like it was not. I didn't realize
As we would say, we have best intentions, right?
Best intentions,
right?
Yes. Now I think we need to start to go to some of the biggies before we go into, because I do want to get to your plans for reInvent and how you advise our customers to make the most of reInvent.
Totally.
But I'm going to jag the one that you might have had your eye on for talking about, because I think it's probably the biggest release in the last couple of weeks, which is the Amazon Connect now provides conversational analytics for voice and chat bots.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is huge.
Yes.
And it comes back to, it takes us back to the top of the show and what we're talking about there, that observability and the explainability and all those abilities that you need if you're going to have any kind of generative AI or any kind of uncertainty in what's going on, your reporting and your testing and all those things.
Yes.
So this is an additional tick box. You may have already seen it. It's launched in all the instances. When you turn on Contact Lens and you turn on summarization, there is an additional tick box now for summarizing the automated interaction. And obviously, for a few months now, we've had record the automated interaction.
Right.
And this is, I think, a game changer in terms of giving our customers confidence to go to production with their generative AI and self-service experiences, because that's always been, well, when I say always, it's not been that long, but it's, that's been the main impediment. Is they get the bot going, it's very impressive in demo, it's very impressive maybe in pilot, but then there's just enough like, well, how do we know it's not going to risk our brand? How do we know that it's saying the right things? Or if someone complains, how can we go back and find out, investigate?
But not only that, but give your business users access to that information, right? So that it's not just, it's just not the admin, right, that has access to this, right? It's your in the same way that they're looking at how their agents are performing, their human agents are performing. They're now able to see how their AI agents are performing, and now can basically say, why are only 5% of the calls being handled by this AI agent, right? We expected this to be at 40%, and so those are the kind of signals that are super important in this, right? And that allows you to really, I think we've said this before, you don't get customer experience right from day, on the first day, right? It takes consistent investment, understanding where your customers are,
well, it's a moving target. You will always be having to adapt.
100%, 100%. And so this gives you that visibility that you otherwise wouldn't have, and end to end, right? Which is super important.
And I'm already having fun looking at things like, well, why is this customer sentiment higher in this when it's talking to the bot than it is to the agent, or vice versa?
Vice versa, yes.
Or starting to analyze, what using another LLM to say of my LLM, my bot, do you think it did a good job? Do you think it could have answered that better? Is it missing something? To set a thief to catch a thief, as they say. This is you can start to that. I find all that stuff super fun.
Yes.
I love running those kind of reports and those kind of getting those insights, because it's
exactly. So
and
I think that's a huge one.
All of this is to solve the historical problem that was why were chatbots so bad. Now they're actually getting pretty jolly good.
Pretty good, yeah. But you still have to understand how your customers are interacting with that, right?
Yes.
And understand what that what that really means, and are you truly getting the level of in terms of the level of investment that you're making into those AI agents that you expect, right, from that perspective, and that is where you're able to start proving the business value, right?
Well,
In
we're
terms
gonna
of being able to show that.
we're gonna see more and more things like Perplexity's Comet browser, which I
Hmm.
know Amazon publicly has had a bit of a stoush with in terms of
Hmm.
people. It was allowed to buy products on Amazon websites and things like that.
Right. Yes.
But I think we're going to see more and more of people using agentic services,
Hmm.
such as the Comet browser, to talk to chatbots. Say,
Yes.
hey,
Yes.
go get me a refund from this organization.
I mean,
And
I think it's super interesting, right? Because like that is, does that start to become the new browser? Right?
mm,
Like that is now going to become the new interface, right? We see these with areas like ChatGPT. We actually if you've seen some of the LinkedIn post that we have, but we've actually just released an update where more or less you can interact with ChatGPT,
yes, I
right?
did see
And
that. Yeah.
that interacts with Connect, right? So
Yes.
because we're part of that is where like there's a new paradigm that's emerging, right, in terms of how consumers are expecting to interact with the web and with your
Yeah.
contact center. And this is us in terms of like starting to figure out like, okay, how do we start to your point, participate, right, in that
mm.
larger ecosystem that's starting to emerge around that
Yeah, I
perspective.
might just give a thumbnail sketch of what you just alluded to or referred to, and you can tell me
Yeah.
if I'm missing it or oversimplifying it.
Sure.
But it was from the post I read and the video I watched. It's that you can basically inform ChatGPT that you have Amazon Connect and that when your
Hmm.
customers are interacting with you via ChatGPT,
Hmm.
contact options can come up as part
Correct.
of
Yes.
Connect and
Yeah.
interact with your, for
Contact center.
instance, contact
Yeah.
center, whether it be automated
Mhm.
or through a human, with
Exactly.
ChatGPT basically being the front door into the whole
Yes.
thing.
Yeah. Yep. It's basically like having another channel, right? That's interacting into
Mm.
your contact center, right? It's just a very, very smart channel. Right. and and that's
Yeah.
yeah. So that's it's super interesting, right? Like again, that's an area like we're working super closely in terms of trying to figure out like how do we optimize for those type of experiences because we know it's just going to become in the near future the default. Right. And I listen. I mean, you listen to lots of podcasts as well as I do, and
Mm.
you hear a lot of this, right? Like in terms of where it's like I think Chat GPT is what the number 5 or number 4 like largest consumer app right now.
Yeah.
So so it's pretty popular overall,
Pretty
and that's
popular.
just that's and particularly with the younger generation, right? Like that's going to be their mode of how they
Yeah.
interact and find information and ultimately interact with with companies and customers and where previously it was you'd go to Facebook and other social channels. This is going to start to become the new paradigm.
Yeah. I mean, Facebook, well, I shouldn't. I'll digress momentarily. The local cricket club that I'm part of,
Yes.
Facebook is the main communication channel, and we're
Yeah.
finding probably 50% of people now aren't on Facebook anymore.
Hmm.
They're
Yeah.
like, it's just that's where old people are for, you know,
Right. People like
sharing.
us, Doug.
Yeah, and they're overly aggressive conservative political views or whatever it
Yes.
is that
Yes.
they're
No,
doing.
that's it too, right? Like trying to actually find something useful.
But speaking of useful, we've only got a few minutes
Yes,
left,
we do. Yes.
and I want to make sure that we get to your reinvent experience. So the main
Yes.
things I want to focus on, I want to know in super quick, like what has the last month been like for you as a member of the service team, and how have you seen other people in the lead up to reinvent with all the pressure on to get things done, get things published, get
Yes.
things ready? Like tell me about it.
It's yeah, no, it's so it is it's an intense time, right, in terms of delivering and ensuring that we're ready to essentially launch, for reInvent. And this is, obviously from a product perspective, we're working super closely with our marketing folks internally, right, in terms of ensuring that we're ready for the launch and all aspects of that, and obviously we're working too closely with our engineering teams to ensure that
Mm,
we're keep on track. And as you can imagine, with any type of new product that we're building, there's dependencies with other teams, and so like sometimes it can get a little tricky, right, in terms of
sure.
around timing
Yeah.
around those type of things, right,
Everyone's
as we
got backlogs. Everyone's got things they're focusing on, and yeah, yep.
backlogs, right, there's an element of we're releasing these features together, right? Often in
Mm.
some of these capabilities, and so ensuring that we can do that in a coordinated way also becomes super important, as part of
Well,
that. And
perfect
so,
example is things like the poly service team.
yeah,
Um, when
exactly.
they
Yeah.
release new voices, or that we got to make sure those are available in Connect, or that they're
Correct.
and
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. And
not
because
everything lines up every time.
we're building on all those primitives, right? So we
Yeah.
have all of these underlying, again, the advantage of, being part of AWS is we have this rich set of, capabilities and primitives, that we can leverage, I'll say out of our toolbox, as, and integrate those, more natively into Connect. And but again, there's some, timing and complexity and other things that we have to figure out as we march towards reInvent. So it's it's exciting.
Mm.
It's one of those things. I will tell you, usually by I think this is what my seventh year doing
Mm.
reInvent, and usually by the time I get to Thursday of reInvent, I'm ready to take a break.
Yeah, I bet.
Right, because it's and which is but what I love about it is when you go to reInvent is when you one is when when we see you just see the bevy of features that we launch and the excitement that in terms of one talking about those features, but then seeing the excitement from customers, and
Mm.
then really starting to dive into, okay, for some of these customers it's like they've been expecting some of these features and they're like, great, now we're solving some of these, or closing the gap in certain areas. And then for other customers it's like, this is amazing, this is something we hadn't thought of or been able to use, and it's really,
And we've
you know
always got a lot of customers who are actually presenting as well. I
yes,
mean, this year
100%.
I've seen we've got the So Energy, Anthology, Petco,
Oh,
Traeger,
mhm,
Cochlear,
mhm. Yep.
Canada Life's
Nice.
Life. No, but I was reading there. The Canada Life's AI powered
Yeah.
contact center.
Yes.
Global tourism brand. That seems like we've hidden the name of that.
Yeah.
Unless that is a U.S. San Diego Health, Caesars,
Mhm. And just
and
general
then there's a
financial services. Yeah.
general financial services. And those,
Mhm.
I believe there is also, as part of the um, slightly patronizingly titled Disruptors from Down Under session, we have Poppy from New South Wales eHealth will be
Oh, very
at
cool.
reInvent. So she's
Awesome.
making the trip over, which is awesome, because
Yeah.
sometimes for public sector customers it can be difficult to get
Right.
funding to get over and all that kind of
Totally.
thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Now
I mean,
let's let
it's a long flight from from your
yeah,
side.
it certainly is. But I want to hear about your advice to what people should expect at reInvent, how
Sure.
they can best consume it, and
Mhm.
how they can best organize themselves, all those kinds of things
Yes.
to
Yeah.
get the most of it from a Connect perspective.
So what first thing is, go familiarize yourself with the agenda.
Yep.
Right. There's just the thing that's easy to get overwhelmed with when you get to reInvent is like, I mean, there's tens of thousands of people, right? Everybody comes into
Mhm.
Vegas, right? We all show up, there, and then you've got the keynotes. So, the keynotes are always great. Highly recommend to make sure that you get into those keynotes. Get there a little bit early if you can, right? Because
Yep.
often those keynotes start, the lines start early. so so
Well, and so
if,
the main one, there's a breakout session as well for Pasquale
yes,
De Mayo, who is the obviously the head of the Connect service, vice president and general manager of Amazon Connect. So
yes,
he's on December 1st at 11 a.m. PST, which I guess is Pacific Standard Time. Is that right?
yep, that is correct. Yep,
Yep.
yep.
Yeah. So that will be one that you don't want to miss. You can live stream these as well if you sign up for them.
Some of them you can, yeah. Some like I'm pretty sure PQs will be live streamed. The major keynotes, right? Like with Matt Garman and other
Hmm.
folks.
Yeah. Yeah.
The AI keynote with Swami, like those will all be essentially live stream. So if you're wherever you are, which is great, you can jump onto the stream and watch it as well, from that perspective.
In Melbourne, you will be getting up quite early to watch PQ,
Yes,
and
yes,
my man Bamba Diouf is also
yes,
co-presenting with him there.
yes, yep,
And two guys from Centrica, James Boswell and Darren Miles. So
yeah,
it's great to have
yep.
a customer up there as well speaking.
100%,
Um,
right? And
yeah,
this is think of this as like PQ's, sort of, what do they call that?
state of the nation.
State of the nation, kind of like, this is, hey, more or less what PQ will cover is kind of like more or less the majority of our announcements, through that presentation. He'll kind of, touch on a number of them, as we go through them, as he goes through that. And then obviously having Centrica come up and talk, in terms of the value that they've seen with it as well. So, so again, definitely, like, if there's any of them that you want to see, like, that would be like, don't miss that, right? From the Connect perspective, because that's going to be the key one there. And then what that'll then start to do is then, as you look at the other ones, the 1, 2, 3, what do we got? 10, other sessions that are going on focused on Connect. That'll sort of set up in terms of where you want to start to focus, in terms of what areas that you want to dive into. Because the way these often are set up is essentially PQ is kind of giving the high level overview of the capabilities, and then we'll have some of these bigger launches, more or less, or I should say, deeper dive on these bigger launches in some of these sessions. So that's some of this, and that's the aspect to pay attention to, because then you want to attend those sessions where you find the most interest from that perspective. And what I'll say too is the other reason to planning here is getting around. So that's the other aspect, is making sure that you give yourself time to get between sessions. And so that's the other key piece of that, because
I assume there's buses that are
there's
going
totally
up and down the
buses, but
strip, are they?
again, right, totally, yes. There's buses and shuttles between all the hotels, which is great. You just have to make sure that you're giving yourself time, right, to go, between them, and then obviously, lunch and other things like that that are going on.
Hydrate.
Yes, yes.
You are in the high desert as well, so there's plenty of water.
And I would say too, like, use as an opportunity to meet other customers, right? That's the other aspect, and particularly if talk to your account team, right? Say, hey, I'm here. What are other customers? Who are other customers that I could potentially talk to, right?
That's a crucial point, isn't it? Yeah, like that, because that networking and the ideas and the information exchange, it's more valuable than us just standing up on stage saying
100%. That's actually what we love the most. We love when customers talk to each other and they have those conversations, because it's, as much as we can say we're awesome, what speaks louder is when that comes from other customers talking to customers directly, and that's what we want, right? We want to create those type of interactions at reInvent.
Well, I cannot wait for the next episode. I've enjoyed this one, but the next one, as you say, Christmas at AWS.
Yes.
It's when we get to open all the toys, and we'll be able to talk about how things are going to be.
And I will try to do some podcasts from reInvent.
Well, I will be as flexible as I can. I will make myself available at whatever hour you need.
Maybe I can even find a few special guests. I mean, maybe we can. We'll see. I know that.
Well, if you could jag PQ, that'd be fine. But I expect he might not want to be play as fast and loose as we do.
I think he'd love it. I think the challenge would be just PQ's schedule. I know he's
absolutely
at reInvent. He's he is the most in demand, right, in terms of customers wanting to meet with him. So maybe he could be part of our after reInvent episode. Maybe pull him
absolutely.
In. That might be a good opportunity.
Well, Mark, let's wrap it up there. Have a blast. Make sure you stay healthy, because I know people often come back from these big events. Everyone's got COVID or a cold or something.
I survived Dreamforce without any cold, so I'm just like, I feel like my immunity is doing pretty good at this point. So hopefully I'm going into reInvent with
eat an orange every morning.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Take the zinc. We'll be good to go. All right, thanks, Doug. We'll chat soon.
Bye.
Bye now.